So let's take a look at a way that we can use collections in Java in our actual program here. So I've got our Hello World program open again, and if you recall, we had created this printer class and a series of classes to aid in using a printer. And we're just going to keep on expanding on this example here. If you remember back in the first course, we had created basically a print tray or a paper tray. And we had made our print method basically be able to check to see if the paper tray is empty and only print out copies when it had paper in the paper tray. So we would call this paper tray use page, and that would get rid of a piece of paper from the paper tray by reducing the count. And then when it was empty, it would tell us to load more paper. What we're going to do here now is we're going to change this. So instead of just printing out the text to the screen, we're going to simulate printing to a real page. So we're going to create a page class here, and we're going to create a collection of pages. And so as paper is pulled from the paper tray, we're going to store a collection of pages so we can see what was printed. So let's go ahead and create a page class real quick here. I'm going to create a new class called page. And for this class, we're going to just create a variable to hold what is on the page. So we'll just call this printed text. And then we'll create a constructor here for our page that will take a string called text, and it'll set our printed text. And then we need some way to be able to get this text from our page, so we want to be able to just return what is on the page. So we'll create a method here, a public method called getText. We'll make it return a string, and we'll just return printed text. So now we're going to use this page class to basically store text that we get printed. Instead of printing out the page to the screen, we're just going to print it to a page, and we're going to store this collection of pages, and we're going to store this as a list. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to go into our printer here, and we're going to create a property or a private member variable called pages, and we're going to make this a list. So I'm going to use this interface called list here, and I'm going to use the generic implementation to create a list of page, of type page. So it's going to be a list of pages, and we're going to set this equal to a new array list of type page. And we'll call this pages. And we'll need to import these types here. If you remember, Control-Shift-O in Eclipse will let you automatically import types. And so we're going to choose Java util list, because this is the list implementation and interface. And now you can see that we've got a variable here called pages that is of type list, and list is the interface of the collection, and array list is an implementation. And remember, there's multiple implementations that could exist for this collection. We're going to operate based off of this interface because we don't care what the actual implementation is. We just care that it obeys this interface. And there's different implementations you can choose from. Most of the time, ArrayList is what you're going to use. That's what we're going to cover in this example, just so you can get an idea of how to use collections. So what we'll do here is this list will now allow us to basically hold a page or multiple pages. So we're going to go ahead and go into our print method, and every time that we would have printed to the screen, instead, we're going to create a new page and add it to our list. So the way that we can do this is we can do pages.add, and then we're going to just add a new page, and we're going to give it the text to print in its constructor. So what's going to happen here is this is how simple it is to create a list. We've declared our list up here, we've initialized it to an empty list, an array list, and then we can just add items to the list just using add, and then we just create a new page every time. So every time that a copy would go through here, we're going to get something added to our pages. So now we'll end up not printing to the screen anymore, but we'll fill up this collection of pages. And at the end, let's create another method here to print what was on the pages, or to see what was on the pages. So now I'll create a method here called show pages, or actually let's call this output pages, because that's really what we're doing. And this output pages is not going to return anything, but what we're going to do is we're going to iterate through a list. And this is one of the things that collections are really good for, is to be able to iterate through them or to go through them in a loop. And we're going to use our for each loop in order to do this. And you're going to see what kind of seems like magic here, how this actually works with collections. So I'm going to go and put for here, and then I'm going to declare a variable of type page. I'm going to call this current page, and then remember this colon is for basically means in, and we're going to put pages. So we're basically going to loop through our pages collection, this list of pages, and we're going to get every single page out of there, and it's going to get stored in this current page variable for the iteration of that loop. So then we're just going to go ahead and print it out, and we'll print out current page dot get text. So let's go ahead and modify our main program to use this. So I'm going to get rid of what we had created here for the exception handling, and we're just going to get rid of all of this here. And then for our printer, we're going to print a certain number of copies. Let's print 5 copies. And before we do that, let's make sure we load some paper. So we'll load 5 pages. Actually, let's load 10 pages of paper here. So I have plenty of paper. And let's go ahead and run this and see what happens here. You can see nothing has been output, because what we've ended up doing is now we're actually, instead of printing to the screen, we are printing to our collection of pages. We're creating a new collection of pages, adding a page for each page. But we created this new method called output pages, and actually we need to make sure that this is public so that we can access this here. Okay, so now that that's public, we should be able to call printer.output pages, and this is going to loop through all of our pages and print them out to the screen. So let's run this, and now you can see it's printed this 5 times. So just to recap what we did here, we basically went into our printer class and we created a collection of type list, and this is the interface. We initialized this to a concrete implementation array list. So this gave us a place to store pages. Then we went to our print method and we made it so that instead of doing this printing directly to the screen, we just added a new page every time. So we've created our new page, use our constructor to create this new page, and it gets added to this list. So this list that we declared up here ends up getting a bunch of pages added to it. And then when we called our output pages method, we just looped through each page in that list and we printed it out. So that's it for using a list. It's not that hard to do, but you can see how useful this is in a lot of situations where you need to gather up some kind of collection of things and later loop through that collection to do something on each one of those things.